We, the friars of St. Anthony Shrine here, wish to thank all of you for tuning in to this Mass today. In a time that historically has never happened, we take the opportunity of using technology to reach out to recognize that spiritual communion that we are called into, especially celebrating this mystery, the Mass. As we do so, we lament and are saddened that we are not able to gather as community in the presence of one another. But we also give thanks that we are able to at least reach out with one another and celebrate spiritually in this gift. As we have entered into these days, one of the scripture lines that comes to my mind is from the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us rid ourselves of every burden and sin that clings to us, and persevere in running the race that lies before us. We are called to persevere, to recognize, although we may not be physically present to one another, that we are able, even socially distant, to not be socially isolated. The readings today, hopefully as we meditate and reflect on them, offer us a new understanding of how God is at work. When we listen to the first reading of how King David had been called, he was not present with those who were looking for the king. God tells them to know, we will wait until he is present and he is anointed. We listen to the responsorial psalm, one of the most comforting psalms that I find of the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. As I listen to that psalm, that wonderful gift of the shepherd is with us, and that we need not want, that God understands, that hopefully we are reassured that God is, even in this difficult time with the coronavirus, able to bring us forth into knowing the goodness and grace that he offers. As we listen to this gospel of the man born blind, how often do we recognize that we too find ourselves blind at times, of not being able to see, not being able to make sense of what is going on. And yet, God, when we turn to him, is with us. Jesus offers to this man the ability to see. And in seeing, he is then criticized, being brought before those who would persecute and those who were looking for a reason to doubt who Jesus was, that they tried to reprimand not only this man, but his parents and Jesus. In our life, how do we see, especially in challenging times as this? Do we allow our faith to grow and recognize that God asks us to see from another perspective his goodness? Does God bring this to us? I do not believe so. But God does bring us goodness and strength within it. He offers to us an opportunity, especially in our world with its technological advances, to be in solidarity with the world around us, to recognize what has happened already in different countries and continents, and how we too will be able to get through this. As we do so, we recognize that it is in prayer and faith, with a hope and realizing how do we share that love, that it calls us for new creative ways of reaching out to one another, to caring for one another. And in that suffering of recognizing within the other, we realize how can we grow. May God truly be with us to help us not be in fear, but in hope and faith realize his presence, and in that presence to truly be able to see, to recognize that may not be a way that we like, as Jesus spat into the clay and rubbed it in the eyes, so we too may go through our difficulties and hardships, but asking Christ to help us see that we truly might be his disciples, and in following him to be nourished by his word, by his gift of grace, by that spiritual communion with one another. As we continue through these times, may we keep one another in prayer. May we keep each other strengthened, knowing that, yes, we are called to be those cloud of witnesses, not physically present all the time, but at least in heart and in faith and in hope, sharing the difficulties and hardships, checking on one another, having the ability to look after and see how we too are asked to be able to see that God is with us, and as Jesus has strengthened us, that as his disciples we continue to proclaim his goodness.